Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Basu and Godin Notebook. I'm Marc-Antoine Godin on this Friday, January 16th, and I'm with Arpin Basu, who, if I'm not mistaken, looks like he's in Ottawa.
I am in Ottawa, indeed. I spent a lot of time on the road in a car, driving to Buffalo this morning. Drove to
I
Ottawa.
saw you in the room in Buffalo.
To get to Canadiens practice in time.
Saw you in the room. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was there. That's good that there's video evidence of me being there, but I was. Good. And hell of a game by the Buffalo Sabres, I got to say. Yeah. Like that is the happiest. I can't remember the last time. If you'll remember, actually, our first game working together at the Athletic was in Buffalo, right? And that was in 2017.
That's also the first episode of the original format of our podcast.
That's right. We recorded it in the car between Pearson Airport and Buffalo, or the border, I guess. And so I was trying to think of the last time I had been in that building when the vibe was so happy. And I can't think of another time, because 2017, the Sabres were already in it, at that point. Like they were in it. And so, it's been a long time. And I was actually shocked. This is when I was trying to find like an angle for my story last night, and I was kind of fiddling, and I was like, I feel like the Canadiens don't lose in Buffalo that often. And I go and I check, and it turns out that the last time they lost in Buffalo was 2 days before Jeff Gorton was hired.
Okay.
It's 2 days before Marc Bergevin was fired. And Marc Bergevin was in the building as the associate general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. So, just a hell of a performance by the Sabres. And it's crazy. Like, Nick said it after the game, but it just feels like a similar kind of lightning, light bulb going off for them as the Canadiens had coming out of Four Nations last year. Because that collection of talent, this should have happened a long time ago for the Buffalo Sabres. For whatever reason, it didn't. But this coming out of the rebuild for the Canadiens, and I guess anyone who's read my story knows what I'm about to say, but is far more complicated, because the Buffalo Sabres are part of that. And it's just like now you have four teams who are young and exciting and on the upswing, all trying to stake their claim on top spot in this division, or one of the top three spots in this division. At some point, Tampa's still the top dog for sure, but at some point, even that's going to start to slide. It's inevitable. It's impossible it won't. And these four teams are going to duke it out in this division at some point in the next 2-3 years, I would imagine. And so Buffalo's ascension has made that fight a lot more compelling. And I really think this is going to be one of the more compelling competitive divisions in the NHL before long. Like, I think 2 to 3 years from now, it's going to be a dogfight. And I think we got the first real glimpse of it last night, because I don't think the Canadiens played poorly. Just Buffalo was just really good, really good all over the ice. And they won that game more than the Canadiens lost it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the score was tight, but on the ice, I feel as though the Sabres were the better team from beginning to end. So that's ultimately that's how it played out. But somebody on the chat was mentioned that every team in the Atlantic Division would make the playoffs if they were playing in the Western Conference. So that's how serious it's getting. I mean, obviously it's still early in the season, still halfway to go, but the Detroit Red Wings are legit. Montreal's on the upswing. Now the Sabres are pretty serious. They're a bit over the top. They're not that good, but there's something extremely coherent that's going on over there. And their best players play like they want to be there, and they play like they trust each other. And there's a tightness defensively. There's a yesterday at least there was constant pressure also on the puck carrier from Montreal. There were a handful, and Tage,
The Sabres basically played the game that the Canadiens
yeah,
want to play.
yeah, but a bit more
At one
heavy.
point, Lindy Ruff said we were on top of them. And I was like,
Yeah,
Marty,
that's it.
hello? It's like, yeah,
Just no
but they
secret
were.
sauce, basically.
But much heavier for sure. And no coincidence the Hudson Carrier pairing didn't look great against Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck. All these bigger forwards that the Sabres have, who are just as skilled, just as fast. That's a fast team, but with some weight behind it. And so, yeah, they're going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem for this Canadiens group. And I think that was like the first time. I think it's super compelling that the Canadiens have 2 more games against them between now and the end of the month. Like, bring it on, man. I am so in for the Buffalo Sabres being relevant. Like, I'm so in.
Yeah.
I'm all in on that. I kind of love it, and I know that most, if not all, of our listeners are Canadiens fans and probably hate it to some extent, but as a hockey market, you can't beat Buffalo. Every year in the Stanley Cup playoffs, at some point they brought out the ratings, the television ratings for the Stanley Cup final, and it's always the 2 cities that are in the final, and the third is Buffalo. Every year, without fail. It is the city in the United States. This doesn't count Canada, obviously, but in the U.S. ratings in all the cities, it's whatever. If it's like, whoever, Tampa against Chicago, you have the Chicago market number 1, Tampa market number 2, and number 3 is invariably
Yeah,
Buffalo.
well, it's a huge hockey market,
And so,
and they've been the doormat of the league for long enough, So at some point, it's
more than long enough. It's cruel. They've been cruel to this passionate hockey market. It's cruel and unusual, but the Buffalo Sabres have done to these people, and they're still around. Like, that's what I just find it. They're the best hockey fans, honestly. Like, it's easy to love a team that's great all the time. It's much, much, much more difficult to love the Buffalo Sabres for as long as these people have. And the vibe in that building last night, like, there were a lot of Canadiens fans there, and it was a pretty special night. They honored their 05-06 team who reached Game 7 of the conference final against Carolina. Lindy Ruff was the coach then. He's the coach now. They announced Jason Pominville and Thomas Vanek are entering their Hall of Fame. It was just a very nostalgic night. I remember, I kind of left my stuff in the media room, and I come back and there's some guy talking, and I'm trying to figure out who it is. It turns out it's Alish Kodalik, and I was like, I really never thought I was going to hear the name Alish Kodalik ever again. Yuri Novotny, like, they really dug deep on that team, and they brought a lot of guys back. But it was pretty cool. The pregame, I don't know, I don't think they showed it on television, but the pregame video was narrated by Daniel Briere, and I thought it was appropriate because obviously he couldn't be there. I thought it was appropriate that the night prior on national television, the Sabres spanked the Flyers, and then here's Daniel Briere narrating this video, and not only narrating it, but appearing on camera and speaking like directly to the fans and talking about how much it meant to him and how much it meant to all of them, the support they got in Buffalo. And I was just like, man, like, basically, like, not long after that, everything went south, and this fan base that creates this great environment has not had this in so long. And the night they honor those guys and that team and that feeling in the city, the actual current team finally came close to creating something somewhat similar to that, at the expense of the Canadiens. But honestly, like, it's going to just be so, like, and now Montreal's in Ottawa. They're playing Ottawa tomorrow. They lost to Detroit last weekend. They lost to Buffalo. They have to start staking their claim against these teams. And the way Buffalo, they didn't blow them out, but from the run of play on the ice, they were the better team, and I think by a pretty significant margin last night. So the Canadiens have to start staking their claim against these guys, against these 3 teams in particular. And tomorrow night is another chance for them to.
You mentioned the Philadelphia Flyers. We'll keep an eye on Dan Vladar's injury. It's not meant to be serious, but if it was to get any longer and it would threaten his participation to the Olympic Games, maybe Jakub Dobeš will get a call. So I'm curious to see. But anyway, he's not supposed to be out that long. So we'll see. But speaking of Canadiens goaltenders, we'll start with that. I mean,
speaking of Jakub Dobeš,
Jacob Fowler was was reassigned to Laval today. I mean, we both discussed earlier the fact that just based on merit, quality of play, probably that Dobesh would or could have been the odd man out. But honestly, I think that there's two aspects there. The first one is that Samuel Montembeault's play weighs heavily in that decision. If you have your number one that's back into form and he's going to get the bulk of the games, and you're not going to play Fowler necessarily on a regular basis, and he's not going to be significantly better or give you a significantly higher chance of winning games than your other two goalies, or namely Montembeault, then it makes sense to send him down. And the other aspect is that, whether you'd like it, even if Dobesh could have been the odd man out in 3 weeks, there's the Olympic break, and there's no doubt that Jacob Fowler would have been sent down to the Laval Rocket during the Olympic break. So, sending Dobesh down now, calling him up just so that he can go take a break and be on the beach, and send Fowler down during the Olympics, that sort of yo-yo, I don't necessarily see Kent Hughes doing that. So ultimately, and maybe it just I got not I got fooled a little bit by his performances earlier, but when you stop and think about the Olympic break and how obvious it is that he would have been the one sent back just during that period, well, if Montembeault is back and he's good enough to play like his fair share of games, well, why not send down Fowler right now?
Well, the other thing that's changed is the schedule normalizes, right, as of now, and so there's I think no back-to-backs.
No, they've got 9 games left to play. There's no back-to-back, so you could expect Montembeault to play 6.
They're all properly spaced out. Yeah, you could expect Montembeault. He could theoretically play them all. Honestly, like it's, I don't think he will, but he could. Like just based on how they're spread out, and if Dobesh, Dobesh has been winning, but objectively speaking, like he fails the eye test miserably. Like
he's been winning ugly, as they say.
He manages to win his games. Yes, that's it. So, and actually, I have like some numbers in the month of January. So in the month of January, from Natural Stat Tricks goalie stats, and so Fowler had 4 games in January, Montembeault had 3, Dobesh had 2. And so save percentage. These are all 5-on-5 numbers, so forget special teams. 5-on-5 numbers. Save percentage: Jacob Fowler 922, Samuel Montembeault 913, Jakub Dobesh 872. Goals against average at 5-on-5: Jacob Fowler 193, Dobesh and Montembeault both at 2.74. High danger save percentage. This is where it gets really interesting. Jacob Fowler 917 at 5-on-5. Samuel Montembeault a respectable 852. Which is a pretty good save percentage for high danger chances. Jakub Dobesh 667. And basically the interesting thing for Montembeault is, despite him having 1 fewer start than Fowler, he has faced in excess of 2 more expected goals against. So his goals saved above expected is actually better than Fowler's. Fowler is at 0.44 and Montembeault is at 2.55 in the month of January. And Dobesh is slightly below 0. He's at 0 minus 0.63. Right. So, if you just looked at it performance-wise, Dobesh probably would have been sent down, but the reality is that if Montembeault continues playing this way, and I again, we said it so many times.
We banged the drum.
Montembeault did not. We bet that he has to play this way for the Canadiens to have any chance of success. That's why I say, like, I think that they're just going to ride Sam a lot. Like, I don't think Dobish is going to play a whole lot, and that's a bad situation for Fowler to be in. But nothing in his play suggested, even though he's lost a bunch of games and whatever, it's not. It's based on the fact that they just want him to play regularly, and they've clearly made the decision that Sam's going to play regularly from now on.
But they've seen that Jacob Fowler is the goalie of the future. He was not supposed to play, you know, even despite what they say. Let's say that they thought a game here and there in the NHL if need be this season.
No, Kent rectified that. Kent said it flat out at his press conference. The plan was for him to play in the AHL. Of course, we could always have injuries, and maybe that would have changed the plan. But the plan was for him to play in the AHL. That's what Kent said. Marty said something different on that day, because that was a bit of a communications quagmire that day. Like, they were just trying to get a message. They were trying to get a message out.
But my
Kent,
point is,
Kent gave the straight.
My point is, so he was not expected to play in the NHL this year, but he still, I mean, he had 10 starts, and he showed that he's going to be counted on. He can, I think that he's more than he went past the expectations. He blew the expectations for where he's at this point of his career. I think it's great. It's extremely good news what we saw from Jacob Fowler. Not once was he overwhelmed where it was, or intimidated, or the moment was too big or anything. He had some ups and downs, but mostly we saw a calm goaltender who provided confidence to his teammates. And that, from this point on, that whenever you need quality goaltending and you need him, he's going to be there and he's going to deliver. So that's great.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to come away from, and honestly, I'm not convinced we're not going to see him again this season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's honestly, like, I think it's possible. Yesterday I was doing my weekly hit on Melnick's show, and we were having this discussion, and I was in Buffalo, and I'm looking across, and some of the early arrivers from the Canadiens start playing sewer ball, like the soccer game that they play before games. And there's Jacob Fowler, that night's starter, goofing around, laughing, playing sewer ball, having fun. And, it's not something the starting goaltender generally does. They're usually doing their preparation. They're doing their drills with balls and all the sort of the focus and mental preparation that goes into starting a game. And there's Jacob Fowler, goofing around with Lane Hudson and a couple other guys, and just like having fun, playing sewer ball like it was nothing. And I think the way he was able to just roll with the punches the whole time he was in Montreal, every single time he spoke to the media, it seemed like this huge deal, and it was like he was very protected. Obviously when he got called up, he was shielded from the media, didn't speak. He only spoke post game, never spoke. I can't think of a time he spoke other than post game.
You're right.
And so, it was always after he had just played, and he was always basically left to critique his own performance. But we didn't really get a chance to get to know him, and I would have liked that chance, but I think we did get to know him a little bit, and I think that scene of him playing sewer ball and laughing, like less than 3 hours, like 2.5 hours before a game, that he's starting in the NHL at 21. I think it's kind of emblematic of how he handled that whole situation, and it was never too big for him, and he never made it bigger than it needed to be. Like it's obviously it's a huge moment. It's a dream come true. He's reached a life goal, but didn't make it into something that was just so monumentally huge that he wouldn't be able to handle it. Like, I think the mental makeup on that kid, without ever having a chance to actually speak to him for any significant amount of time, I think it's hard not to get the impression that his mental makeup is very similar to, kind of what all the draft videos showed, and Billy Ryan going to bat for him, he's a winner, and all this stuff. Like, it's kind of showing, all that stuff that we saw a few years ago when he got drafted.
I wonder, because you say that Samuel Montembeault is going to get the bulk of the games, obviously until the Olympic break, so that will leave only a few starts to Dobesh here and there. Uh, do you think that with this decision, and knowing that they could very well call up Fowler later on in the season, or if the Canadiens make the playoffs in time for the playoffs, that from this point on, it might not be a 3-man rotation or 3 goalie system right now, but from this point on, every start that Dobesh is going to have will have a heightened significance in terms of how he's being valued and compared to Fowler, and if he's basically on, even though he's a rookie, he might start being on the shorter leash from this point on.
Let's put it this way. If the Canadiens were to reach the playoffs, like this would be Dustin Tokarski all over again, except it's a far more promising goaltender doing it. Like if Montembeault were to get hurt in the playoffs, I'm convinced that they would call up Fowler and not play Dobesh. So that's what's happened. Like that's the situation. So even though Fowler's in Laval, and even though it's funny, they sent Fowler down as soon as I had come around to your original idea of Jacob Dobesh going down to Laval. And as soon as that happens, they send Fowler to Laval. But I think it's the way Sam's playing, and Sam's feeling really good about himself. He spoke today. I didn't speak to him for too long because I wanted to talk to Caden Goalie, who's fighting it a little bit since his return. But like Sam's in a good place. Like Sam is mentally, he's back. Like he's in his head, he's back, and on the ice, he looks back. And the more that he can add to that inventory of solid games, the more convincing he'll be that first half was just a blip and that he's back for real. And the Sam Montembeault that has excelled for the Canadiens by and large over the last 2 to 3 years is back. And so if that's the case, then the Canadiens overall are in a better place. And I think it is the case, frankly. Like at this point, I really do think that's the case. And so the Canadiens' playoff chances and their here and now and their future are both in a better place because Sam Montembeault has figured it out. And because Sam Montembeault didn't have it figured out before, they got the opportunity to bring Fowler up. They got the opportunity to expose him to this world and this life and his future teammates and everything and the environment. And he didn't crumble.
Yeah.
He didn't make the risk of that move never manifested because Fowler didn't allow it to. It didn't crush him at all. He actually leaves with a very positive experience, feeling really good about himself, probably having a better idea in his own head that he will be an NHL goaltender at one point.
Well, I'm sure he never doubted that.
Go and dominate. Everyone doubts that. When you're a goalie, I don't care how good of a goalie you are. It's not like a forward or a defenseman where you can just kind of vision a path to the NHL. There's only 64 of these jobs. It's a lot of variability at the position. It's very volatile. Goaltender performances vary wildly from year to year. We just saw it with Montembeault out of nowhere, just kind of loses it, gets the yips. Every goalie has to have that little, there's got to be a little doubt in their mind, especially when you're not the biggest guy like Jacob Fowler is, even though he's supremely confident and super competitive. And I'm sure, but still, it's good to have like actual evidence, hard evidence, and not just theoretical evidence in your mind that you can play in this league. And there's absolutely no reason left for Jacob Fowler to think that he can't play in this league, is my point. Whereas before it would have been, oh, I'm sure I could play in that league. Whereas now it's like, I'm sure I can play in that league because I've done it.
Oh yeah. From that point on. No doubt. Yeah.
Just great.
From that point on, I agree with you. All right. Hey, it's funny because I feel as though, we spoke on Monday but I feel like it's been a longer week. I feel like a lot has happened since our last episode because we have not even.
So we should mention one thing. Okay. Before we go on, we actually have a guest on this episode. And so we're going to be talking to a guest later on. We spoke with Bryce Pickford. So we're going to talk to him in a bit, but we'll carry on basically because the week has been so jam-packed with stuff. It's so long. We have a lot to handle before we get to this really good interview, I thought.
So, obviously I was alluding to the contract given to Alexandre Texier. I mean, 2
Yes.
years, 2.5 million per. Some people were surprised by the timing of it. It seems as though the Canadians thought that he was a good fit, and that if they were to wait any longer, the price would have gone up because they expect him to continue to be successful the way he's been so far since he arrived with Montreal. So the bet is, we like the player likes us, and why wait any longer and maybe expose ourselves of having to pony up a $500,000 more on his annual salary at the end of the season,
Or a
or
million more,
more.
yeah.
If we wait, might as well do it now. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
but it's baffling though. It remains stunning that a guy who was picked up, who was not left for dead, but basically was picked up by Montreal, and 25 games later, he's handed a new contract, a multi-year contract to boot. That's pretty fascinating, and I think it goes to show that this is a kid who's been able to showcase his talent, but it speaks a lot about
Mm-hmm.
how healthy an environment the Montreal Canadiens dressing room is, because the guy was really unhappy in St. Louis. His career was going down the drain, and all of a sudden he finds himself in an environment where he's viewed positively, where he's welcomed, where culturally he feels super comfortable, and all of a sudden, boom, he blossoms and he finds his game back. It did not take long, but it took only 25 games to convince the management, and to me, it's noteworthy.
I think it took 9 games, in the sense that the 9 games that Texier played on the top line, not that he's like a permanent solution on the top line, but the fact that he played those 9 games on that top line and did not look the least bit out of place. In fact, was the most productive player on that line over those 9 games. He's played 10 now, but 9 games before the contract. He's, his versatility is very valuable to this team. Like we see it now. So many guys injured. It's an injury essentially that has opened up the spot in the top 6. He fills it. If someone else goes down and you need someone on the third line who can skate and can forecheck and is pretty responsible defensively, he could do that. He can play on the fourth line. He can kill penalties. He can take power play reps. He could do a wide variety of things that is very valuable to have as a coach. It's just a great tool to have in your toolbox if you're a coach, where you can plug this guy in basically anywhere in your lineup and basically does not have a salary that is so onerous that it's going to feel that you feel obligated to even play him. Like, you don't even have to play him. Like, it's every single possibility is open to this guy as a winger. Like, he's basically a Swiss Army knife for Martin St. Louis. So at that number, might his play dip? Probably. Like in his last 10 games, he's got 10 points. He's a +8. He's tied for the team lead in scoring with like Nick Suzuki and Juraj Slafkovsky. Like, and that's playing on that top line. And not only is he tied for the team lead, he's a top 25 scorer in the league over that span, basically. So it's like, that's not going to continue, and everyone knows that, right? Like, it's because all 10 of those points came at even strength, by the way, which kind of adds to it. So it's like it's okay that he's not being paid like a first line winger. Like, people are like, oh, you're getting fooled by the first line and all this stuff. He's not going to last there. Like, it has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with this signing at all. It's just that him playing on the first line further underscored how versatile he is, because he's been effective on every line he's played on since he arrived.
Well, the hockey IQ and the quality of reads enable him to play on that top line. And even if the stats were to dip, those attributes are not going to go away. His hands are not going to go away. The fact that he can play both wing and even in a pinch play center, that's not going to go away. He's helped out on the PK. He can play on the second wave of the power play too. I mean, there's a lot to like. Over the years, there's been a few guys that we said about, well, is he going to be the next Paul Byron? I think that Alexandre Texier, in his own way, is the new Paul Byron in terms of playing up and down the lineup and the capability of helping out wherever the team needs him to be. And so that's significant.
And being a basically a reject of another team. Like
exactly.
It's
that furthers the parallel.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's interesting though, because the fact that they commit to this player, it sends a message also that the team sees him in the longer term. Maybe not long term, but I mean medium to long term.
Well, he's only 26. Yeah. Like he's in the age range, right? He's Suzuki's age. He's in the right age range. The guys seem to love him.
Yes, they do.
Like he's not the most how would I say
exuberant.
He's not exuberant. No. He's not the most charming interview in the world. I have basically avoided interview after his first two scrums since he arrived in Montreal. I don't think I've spoken to him since, because there's not a whole lot going on in those interviews, and that's fine. It's not his job is not to do interviews. His job is to play hockey, and he's doing a very good job playing hockey. But the guys seem to genuinely like this guy. Like it's really like, when they got on the ice for the morning skate in Buffalo, and Marty basically announced he didn't announce the deal. They knew about the deal, but acknowledged the deal in the circle after the skate to see all the guys go. I think the Canadiens posted a video of it, but like, see all the guys go to him, Caulfield in particular, Uri Slavkovsky, like, fake punching him in the head and stuff. Like he's one of the guys already. He's only been around for, what is it, 6 weeks now? And he's been fully incorporated and accepted by this group. And it's really one of the strengths of this team is their ability to do that, is their ability to absorb people and make them feel part of the group very, very quickly. And so, Sexy Texie, as they call him, he's one of them now. And so it's a smart signing to me, because it's not overreacting to what's going on right now. A dumb signing would have been like a 5-year deal, like what Dvorak signed,
right?
Like basically like not at the $5 million number, but if they signed him for 5 years at $3 million, let's say, or something like that would be an overreaction. Like that'd be like, okay, dude, small sample, take it easy. But a 2-year deal at $2.5 million, like that's.
Well, in today's hockey, if you've got a trustworthy,
that's nothing.
Even if he was to be a third liner down the road, it's fine.
Even if he were to be a fourth liner,
yeah,
a guy who can do all the things that we just listed, who could play on both special teams and play on any one of your 4 forward lines, is worth at least $2.5 million a year, if not more, I think, because guys who can play on both special teams are very valuable. There's not that many guys who can do that. Like really, like there's, relatively speaking, there's not many guys you can plug in on both. And listen, we haven't seen him a lot on the penalty kill, and so it's hard. It's maybe a little presumptuous to say he can do both. I just judging by his 5-on-5 play, I have no reason to believe he can't kill penalties. Like I think he'd be fine at it. So it's just a very, we were mentioning, I forget when I brought it up, but he's like a utility infielder. Like he's a guy who can play second, short, and third. And those guys, every team wants one of those guys.
Frank Catalanotto. He was my guy with the Texas Rangers.
Frank Catalanotto.
He used to play everywhere.
FP Centennial.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It was so fit that his name would not curve. His name would remain straight.
Yeah. I think that was some artificial fitness there, but whatever.
You said it. I did not.
It was everyone was doing it. Come on. He was like, well, you can't blame him.
No. He made it. He made it to the show. So, yeah, but okay. So they committed to him and they said, he's part of our group. He's a piece of the puzzle. It must mean something for the other guys whose status is more in flux. Your Velenos, Kirby Doc, whose contract is up at the end of this year. we later on in the show we're going to discuss the guys who skated, all the injured players who skated in Ottawa today. But Brendan Gallagher, there's so many guys, so many bodies. Then among them, Texier could have been an odd man out if when everyone's healthy. But the message and the evaluation that management is giving now is saying, no, 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 this guy, we believe in him and he's going to be part of our team. So they're going to find a spot for this guy. And obviously he's deserving. He's been extremely deserving of one. He's deserving to keep it. But his opportunity eventually is going to squeeze somebody else.
Well, what Texier has that most of the guys you listed don't, aside from Doc, is to do what he's doing right now, to play on the top line. We've seen Anderson there. Doesn't work. Gallagher's just a non-starter to play in that spot. Veleno's a non-starter to play in that spot. And, Veleno has a lot of similar attributes in the sense that he's very useful on the penalty kill, but he's a fourth-line guy and not much else. Like you're not going to play him further up your lineup. And it's that part of Texier where he could play anywhere in a pinch. The only place he hasn't played is on that Kapanen line because it hasn't really been broken up since he arrived in St. Louis, from St. Louis, I should say, but in Montreal. But if
I'd be curious to see him there, as much as the kids line is a thing. Let's face it. I mean, since Slav has been separated from Caulfield and Suzuki, that top line has not been top 5-on-5, and if Demidov, because now the kid line is amazing because they've got two really solid play drivers, but if Demidov continues his upward trend and becomes the main play driver on that line, well, it's a luxury to keep Slav on that line. You could when that he could help Suzuki and Colt so much. So I don't know. Maybe you don't mess with a good thing, but they're surely missing him on the top line.
Oh, they for sure are, and which is why I think well, we'll get into it after, but the Texier thing is, it's at the same time, it's not a reaction to what he's been doing on the top line, but it also is a reaction to what he's been doing on the top line in the sense that he's shown that he can play there. He's shown that he can play with anyone. He can play with the entire gamut of NHL players. And if they put Doc on that line, then you decide to put Texier, let's say when Evans comes back with Evans and Gallagher or Veleno or Anderson or whoever, like that's not a weird fit. It's just not. It's like there's so many options for him. But so I just looked it up. Like since Slavkovsky first left that line, the Suzuki Caulfield line, Texier is fourth on the team in 5-on-5 points, having played 4 fewer games than everyone else. Like he arrived after that. But that's from November 17th, that game in Columbus when Slavkovsky first played with Demidov and Kapanen, who obviously left that line afterwards and then went back. But in that span, Suzuki's 7th on the team in 5-on-5 points with 12. Caulfield's 5th with 14. Texier has more than both of them with 16. Wow. So it's Texier is producing with those two, but the Canadiens need Suzuki and Caulfield to produce more than that at 5-on-5. And so I want to see Doc there. I want to see what he can do, and we'll get into it more in a bit. But this is what the Texier signing is about, is the fact that no one's pretending he's a long-term solution to anything, really. He's just a good guy to have around when trouble hits.
Absolutely. It's and it's funny because
it's an insurance policy.
It's funny to say about a guy who was, who has his contract torn, but he's a low risk for them, at that price, and because of the package that he offers, it is a commitment, but nothing huge, So, and he's been. I don't know. I go back to this idea that the locker room right now is a healthy environment that brings the best out of so many guys, uh, it's going to be a
Yeah.
motivation for the team later on to say, you know what, who else could we add if need be, knowing that we can bring this player who might be struggling somewhere else or is not a fit or any. We know that if we bring him into that room, it's the chances of him panning out are more
Mhm.
significant because of the Texier story, among others.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, and I just checked. So the 5-on-5 leaders since Texier arrived, he is tied for first on the team. Slavkovsky and Texier have 16 points at 5-on-5 since Texier played his first game. That's one ahead of Hudson, 2 points ahead of Demidov, 4 points ahead of Kapanen, 5 ahead of Caulfield, and 7 ahead of Dobson and Suzuki. So Suzuki's 8th in that span on the team in 5-on-5 scoring. So
Yeah.
not great. And that's something that they need to solve. And Texier is not that solution, obviously, because he's played with them for a good chunk of that time, and they're not producing with him. But Texier himself showing an ability to do that is good. Why don't we get to our
Yes.
guest? Should we get to our guest? Yes, let's get to our guest.
I
This
don't,
is fun. We don't often have a guest.
well, no, especially not a player. But listen, I feel
No.
bad now because we spoke to Bryce Pickford earlier this week, and he was on a serious streak, but he played since then, and his streak got stopped. He was no points on Wednesday, and I'm thinking, gosh, did we
Yeah.
jinx him? We better not have jinxed him.
I mean, we were well. I think our listeners are going to be able to judge for themselves. We had some pretty. It was a funny interview.
Yeah,
I thought it was fun. So anyhow, let's check it. Let's check
Okay,
it out.
here's Bryce Pickford. All right, so we're very happy to be joined by Bryce Pickford, defenseman of the Medicine Hat Tigers. Bryce, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm super pumped.
Well, great. We're pumped to have you, and I think every night, either the WHL's Twitter feed or the Medicine Hat Twitter feed is just a constant source of attention in this market. First question, obviously, you're on a record-breaking sort of pace here, goal-wise, and just offensively. Last year, you guys were really loaded offensively. You have a great team this year, but in terms of like Gavin McKenna and Caden Lindstrom and just these big names that everyone recognizes, some people might have assumed that your offense was a product of that. How would you have taken that, and how have you kind of taken the opportunity this year to sort of prove your own game and your own and your own offensive abilities without those guys?
Yeah. Having those guys on my team last year, I give them big props to the season I had. But I knew I always had that. I just needed to trust myself. And them leaving to go to college, it kind of I had no choice to kind of just tell myself that I had to find a way to win and lead this group of guys. And this team is unbelievable. Obviously, we're not as skilled, and we don't have the Gab McKenna and the Ryder Richies and all them, but our team plays well together, and we play team first. So I think that's why we're doing so well right now, and we just got to keep it going. We have a tough weekend ahead of us. We just got to keep our head on the paths here.
So, anybody who's followed you remotely, I mean, knows that you usually were with Seattle, eventually ended up with Medicine Hat, and it seems like it was night and day in terms of opportunity, and you really blossomed with the Tigers. But can you describe a little bit what was the difference in your experience in the W between Seattle and Medicine Hat? Was it just a matter of environment? Was it that you learned new things, a new approach, and a new approach in, for example, how to use your shot, or are there things like that? So basically, where does that disparity come from between your two situations, Seattle and Medicine Hat?
Yeah, in Seattle, I was a younger guy. I was 15, 16, 17, so I didn't get given very much ice time and an opportunity. They had all these top guys ahead of me. And then when the trade went through, I got given a lot more chances on the power play and on the PK and as a leader. And I always had those things. I just they didn't see it in me in Seattle. And but Medicine Hat did, and they took the chance on me, and it paid off.
Have you always kept like a chip on your shoulder towards the Thunderbird, saying, you didn't believe in me enough. I'm gonna
Uh
show it to you.
yeah, I guess a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, fair
So the
enough.
one thing you did do in Seattle though is you won a championship there, and so that's that obviously sticks with you. And Kane Gooley, who's in Montreal now, was in a very similar position, 16-year-old on the Prince Albert Raiders, wins the WHL championship, and really carried that experience with him. How did that impact your ability to make that transition and really take a step in your career? Like what did you learn out of that experience, even if you weren't playing a primary role on that team?
Yeah, we had an unbelievable team that year. I think we had no, I think it was 5 first rounders, which is pretty
Mm.
incredible to have on one WHL team. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, they were all they took care of their bodies on and off the ice. They were so much like pros, and they worked so hard off the ice, and they just treated their bodies like a temple, and it just leaded to their success on the ice. And I think that I took a big part of that to my game, and I'll never forget that year. I'm so grateful. I'm a champion with Seattle, and I'm a champion in Medicine Hat, so it's pretty cool.
So the Canadiens drafted you as an overager, but do you think were you surprised in 2024 when you were not drafted?
I didn't blame teams for not drafting me, because I didn't put up very many points, but I think I brought a lot more that year. I was a different player. I was more physical. I think I led my team in fights, 16 and 17-year-old years. So I thought I was good defensively too, and I just accepted my role as a younger guy. But I obviously didn't put the puck in the net enough that year.
Yeah, because there's I spoke to someone from the Montreal Canadiens organization on the day of the draft, and the first thing that he told me about you was the physical aspect of your game. Now that your goals are giving you so much publicity and the offensive side is really coming out, how do you balance that with trying to keep the physical aspect of your game really within your identity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in Seattle it was a little bit easier to play defense because I was a younger guy and I knew that I had to be really good defensively to stay in the lineup. I think my role in the with the Tigers to be a little bit more offensive, since I've been having the year I'm having right now. So I feel like they're kind of leaning on me to have at least a goal a night. So the stress is there, but I think I think defense wins championships. So
Yeah.
our D have to be really good, and we have to be good defensively to win. And the team, like I said, that we have this year, we don't have Gavin McKenna and Lindstrom and Molendijk, so we're gonna have to play together and as a team, and that's the only way that we're gonna win.
You've been well trained as a hockey player to say defense wins championships as well. As a guy who's like setting the franchise record for goals by a defenseman in mid-January, that's a
Yeah,
pretty good line.
that's what our D core says here all the time. D wins
No,
championships.
yeah,
So yeah.
they're not wrong. You had a pretty big gap in age, I guess, at the time. But have you kept in touch with Jared Davidson at all? And like, do you talk about what it's like in Laval? Because I would imagine, not to look too far ahead, but there could be a near future with you being under contract and everything that you could be in Laval pretty soon. Do you sort of pick his brain about what it's like there?
No, I haven't texted him about that. Kind of just left him alone. He's having a really good year, so I'm just trying to not poke the bear. But I seen him in the summer. Played with him when I was 16, and even he was there when I was 15. And he's an awesome guy. He's unbelievable on the ice, and he's a really nice guy off the ice. Great leader. His shot is wicked, as you can tell. And
Yes.
he's super competitive. He's a great guy to have on your team. And yeah, I haven't asked him too many things about that.
Uh,
Fair enough.
you referred to the expectations, the offensive expectations towards you to in order to help the Tigers win. How do you balance what the things that you can do, the assets in your game that can help your team win today with your own development and making sure that the attributes that could make you an NHL player later uh, are really the ones that you can focus the most on. I mean, your head coach used to be an NHL coach. He knows. I don't know to which extent he coaches you, saying, you know what, it works here, but at the next level it might not. And if you want to make it to the next level, focus on this, this, and that. But how do you balance the help you can provide your team today with your long term development?
Yeah, it's very tricky, very tricky. Especially being the captain, I also gotta take that role on too. But I'm
Mm,
super grateful. I think that just as their leader, I have a lot of good A's to help me out, so they kind of take a lot of weight off my shoulders. And our team's been playing really good right now, and coaches always talk about it, and you hear it from guys from the A or the NHL. They always say that it's another level for defense at the next level. So I think that's the biggest thing that separates pro or the A from the WHL and even the NHL is how good can you be defensively.
mm.
Obviously, there's areas I can improve in the defensive part of my game, and I'm working on it right now. But we just gotta keep this thing on the go here.
So, Bryce, I would imagine, further to that, the Canadiens have a development staff. Frankie Bouillon is sort of in charge of the defensemen. You were telling me right before we jumped on that he's visited a few times to check you out. What sort of pointers is he giving you? I doubt he's giving you many offensive pointers. He wasn't a great offensive player himself, but defensively he was pretty stout. What are some of the observations he's given you and the things that he's given you to work on this season? Maybe away from the offensive side of things.
Yeah, they kind of talked to me about the defensive part of my game with pins and being more physical. And I think they see that I'm good defensively, but they also know that um, that I need to create offense for my team to win. And it gives us a better chance to win. So they also know that I have that weight on my shoulders, and they know at the next level I'm not going to be right away the number one guy. I'm gonna be the young rookie, and I'm gonna have to earn my respect in the lineup. But yeah, I think they just kind of told me to keep playing the way I'm playing and kind of focus a little bit more in the D zone on my pins and sometimes I kind of get puck focused and I stop moving my feet and try and read the play. So I think they want me to kind of move my feet and be more physical in the D zone and just be better all around.
Yeah, killing the plays and stuff. It's super big in their vocabulary in the organization, making sure that first things first, you kill the play and then you take the puck back and you go the other way. Generally speaking, if you picture yourself 3, 4, 5 years down the road, what sort of defenseman do you think you're going to be? If you had to describe, based on what you know about yourself, how hockey is developing, how it is played nowadays at the pro level, what if you had to describe the way that you're going to be as a defenseman a few years down the road? Well, how would that be?
I would describe myself as a two-way defenseman. I think I can bring the offensive side, and I think I'm also reliable on the defensive side on the PK and in all situations. At the in the last 2 minutes of the game, I think the coach can trust me in that sense. I think I can also bring a little bit of edge to my game, toughness.
Hmm.
I've had a lot of fights in my career, and I'm not scared to defend my teammates when I need to.
So one thing I'm curious about. So I read that the first year, your first draft eligible year, when you didn't get drafted, you were invited to the Colorado Avalanche rookie camp, if I'm not mistaken, and you couldn't attend because you were sick. How did that invite come about? Have you ever thought of like, what if I wasn't sick or whatever? Like, I mean, how did that whole situation come about, and how disappointed were you at the time not to be able to go?
Yeah, I was walking out to our shop where we have our gym, and my phone was ringing. And I was like, "Oh, who's this?" And I answered it, and they invited me to their camp, and I was super pumped. And then I got super sick, and I didn't end up going, and it was was pretty sad, but I kind of realized that everything happens for a reason. It was a little frustrating. I didn't understand why it had to be that I couldn't do because I worked so hard for it. But everything happens for a reason, and everything worked out. I just had to trust in the Lord, and He never fails. So yeah.
How
And
much
you
did
just
that fuel your draft plus one? Like that whole double disappointment, I guess. You don't get drafted, then you get an opportunity, perhaps with this incredible organization that has Cale Makar in it, for crying out loud. I mean, and then how did that serve as motivation, or how did you use that for your draft plus 1 year that ultimately got you drafted?
Yeah. I think I just keep it in the back of my head before games or before a hard workout that is hard and I don't really want to do it. I think I just remind myself of that time, and especially not getting drafted. I just remember thinking they don't want me. They don't want me. And I just got to prove all of them wrong. And I kind of just kept that in the back of my head going into every game last year. And it kind of just lit a fire in me. And I just kind of just started playing like myself. And with the team I had last year, they were unbelievable. And all the credit goes to them.
so fast forward 15, 16 months later, you end up with a pretty nice Christmas present, signing your first contract with the Canadiens. Can you paint a picture of, how did that come about, where you were, how you lived the moment?
Yeah. I played the night before we played, and then the next day we had our Christmas break. And grabbed my gear at the rink, and I got this call from my agent, or this text I got, and it had all these numbers, and I'm like, what are these? And he goes, they just offered you a contract, and I was like, oh, I was kind of in shock for the first couple hours, and I was driving back with my dad. I went outside, gave him a hug. We were kind of just in shock, and honestly, it didn't really hit me until a couple days later when I was like, holy, like, kind of just hit me emotionally. Huge thanks goes to all the family members, all the coaches, and everybody that kind of helped me out. And yeah, it's a moment I'm never gonna forget.
So I want to ask about your dad, Jim, right?
Yeah,
And so I did a little digging on him. He's got an elite prospects page, so he's he's there. I guess played junior A in back in the day.
AJ
But
Allstar.
you're yeah. Oh, really? All star.
Apparently,
Okay,
he
that I didn't
brags
know.
about it all the time. I don't know.
Oh, really?
That's what he
Have you
says.
found
Yeah.
any documented evidence of
No,
it?
I
Like, is
don't
there
know. I
any?
don't see any proof, so I don't believe it. Yeah.
um, seems like an interesting guy though. You're one of 5 kids. Am I wrong? Is that right?
Yeah,
Or
I got an older
yeah,
brother, Austin, older sister, Regan, and then 2 younger brothers. One's Riley and one's Kane.
right. Who both play, right? And so,
Yeah,
your dad works on an oil rig, if I understand correctly.
yeah.
Like, how does that? Like, is he gone for
He
like
works week on,
long
week
stretches
off.
at a time and
Yeah, just
week
week
on,
on,
week
week off.
off?
Yeah.
So, what influence did he and your mom and just your whole family have on who you became, and how, like, what are some of the things, some of the life lessons, I guess, you learned from having a family like that?
Yeah. My dad coached me growing up. We had a team called TR, Team Revolution. He coached me off ice my whole life, so all the credit goes to him. Off ice, and he's done a lot of on ice stuff with me too. But yeah, his work ethic is unbelievable. I've never seen a guy that works harder for his family, and it just kind of pushes me even more to keep working to reward him with hopefully money in the future or whatever I end up surprising my parents with or giving back to them. But yeah, my mom has been unbelievable too, and even my sister and all my brothers, they've all helped me out throughout this whole time, and it's yeah, I can't say thanks enough.
Did you get a signing bonus when you signed?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you do anything special with it?
No,
Yeah.
nothing
I was
special
about to
with
say
it.
what?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
no, no. I've been good.
But when you
Well, good.
with your can you just, I don't mean to peek too much, but in terms of your family's upbringing, I mean, were you growing up comfortably? Is it something that you had, your parents had to work very hard in order to, I mean, that's a big family you got there. So when you mentioned about hopefully, earning money during your pro career, maybe to give back to your parents, what sort of environment did you grow up in?
Yeah, we obviously weren't the richest family. Like you said, there's a lot of us in the house, so a lot of us played sports, and it costs a lot of money raising 5 kids. So we definitely weren't rich, but my dad never found an excuse for the money, and he always worked his ass off to give everything to his kids, and that was just kind of the kind of guy he was for his family, and he's willing to do anything for us, and yeah, and I love him.
What would you say is the biggest value that he transmitted to you? And I could ask the same about your mom.
I think my dad, I
What did
think
they?
my work
Yeah.
ethic. I think I get lots of credit
Mm.
for how hard I work off the ice, and I would give that a big thanks to my dad. He's a really hard worker, and my mom's a sweet person, and I love her. I would say she's a nurse, so I feel like I probably should learn something in that side, but I know nothing. I don't know anything about needles or anything. So she
Could
used
maybe learn to
to
take care
do
of yourself a little bit.
she used to do CrossFit, so she used to be really good at that. She traveled, I think, around Alberta doing competitions in her age group, and she did really well. I think she
Oh,
won every one.
really?
So she obviously works really hard too, and
Oh,
she earns everything she gets. So yeah.
so a CrossFit champion and a Junior A All Star as parents. This is quite the.
That's pretty good.
Is it Junior A or Junior
Oh,
B? I don't know.
great.
I don't know. That's a pretty good
My dad
combo.
has like this mug at home, and it says AJ All Star on it, and I don't know. I just don't think it's real. I
Yeah.
think he just bought it somewhere, but
You thought he got it made up at like the novelty shop somewhere, and
yeah,
he
that's
just
what
went in
I
and
think.
said,
That's
"Put
what I
this on a
think.
mug for me." And
Yeah. Yeah.
Or he found it at a flea market, maybe. Who knows?
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
You never
if
know,
it doesn't have
maybe.
his name on it. It could have been gotten
Could
for.
be anybody's.
He might have some guy might have just sold it after they got used. They got sick of it, and then he just
Exactly.
picked it up. Last one for you from me, but the Canadiens are obviously having like a great season. They have this young team. They're exciting. They have all sorts of prospects, both on the team in terms of young players in Laval, in junior like yourself, or college or wherever. How have you been just digesting being part of this organization, watching them being on the verge of success, and just trying to, as Marc Antoine asked you earlier, trying to picture yourself in that environment or where you would fit in? Like, how much is it hard not to think of that, and do you think of that when you watch their games or whatever?
Yeah, I definitely think about it. I try not to think about it too much, because I can't really control any of it other than my work ethic. I think, yeah, they have a lot of great prospects, and they're a young team right now, and they're doing really good for how young they are, and they're going to be really good in a couple of years. And I'm really happy to be a part of this team, and nothing's gonna be given to me. I got to work for everything. So I'm ready for that, and I'm just super pumped to get going here.
I had a couple regarding your goal production. Obviously, your slap shot is one of the best in the league, and you've got your one timer. You generate a lot of goals that way, but you also use your wrister to walk in the slot and all that. I've seen some highlights where also you drive the net, you dangle, you make moves, and you catch opponents flat footed. But what's the foundation of your goal scoring ability and the fact that you've been able to produce so much?
Yeah, I think growing up in Seattle, obviously I didn't put up a lot of goals, but I think I was just a younger guy and I wasn't very comfortable there. And I've always really been a shooter. We shot lots of pucks
Mm.
growing up on our farm. We built our own shooting area, and there was days that we would shoot 1,000 pucks with my two younger brothers and my dad, and there'd be blisters on our hands and everything. So I think a big thanks goes to those days just grinding outside in the hot sun, and I think obviously my power play buddies have helped me out a lot. A lot of thanks goes to them. The plays that they do, they kind of just sometimes set me up with an open net. So thanks goes to them too.
So, according to the WHL, the record for most goals by a defenseman belongs to a guy named Lawrence Sakharov, who had 50 goals with Saskatoon in 1971-72, and not to Troy Mick, who was both a defenseman and a forward. He had more, but I think they don't count him because he was also playing forward. But that record is, it's attainable for you. So
it's within reach.
It's definitely within reach. So is it a motivation or is it a distraction for you?
I don't think it's a distraction. I think it's something I can work for and look at every once in a while. But obviously not too much. My goal this year is not for that. It's to win another championship, and obviously that would help my team win games. But I just got to do what my team needs me to do every night, and hopefully it comes. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Well, Bryce, if you meet your if you meet what your team needs you to do, which is to score a goal every game, then you have it in the bag. You're all good.
There we go.
You're gonna get there, no problem. So just do what's expected of you, and you should be fine. Exactly, not a problem.
All right, and finally, you're a captain of this team. You've already went twice to the Memorial Cup. A third trip with the Tigers to the Memorial Cup, playing for the big thing late May. Is it how within reach is that goal?
Yeah, I think a lot of teams kind of doubted us after the year we had last year, and after all the guys we lost a lot of guys. There's a lot of doubt in our team, and these guys have proved everybody wrong in a lot of ways. We're on a 17-game win streak. That's pretty incredible. That just tied the Tigers record. So to lead these guys, it's an honor. It's a great group of guys. They work really hard, and it's really fun to be a part of.
All right, that was Bryce Pickford. I hope you enjoyed that. Really fun kid, a fun conversation. Good to get to know him a little bit. It was good to let him get out of his car. Finally, for those who are not watching on video but just on audio, that entire interview was done in Bryce Pickford's car in some parking lot in Medicine Hat. So thank you to Bryce Pickford. Thank you to the Medicine Hat Tigers for helping set that up. But we have some more stuff to get into because, on Friday, I drove 5 hours from Buffalo to get to practice on time in Canada, Ontario.
That's the dream, man. That's the dream. From Buffalo to Canada.
This is all dreamlike, and especially to go to the Bell Sensplex, like not the Canadian Tire Center, the Bell Sensplex, while there's a minor hockey tournament going on. And so there was just kids as far as the eye could see. They were thrilled that the Canadians were skating there, and I was actually kind of happy for them that they could actually get a glimpse of the Canadians skating there. But at that practice, and so there was a hint. We were in Buffalo. We were waiting to go in the room. I'm with Dave Levesque of the Journal de Montréal and Anthony Martineau of TVA Sport. And Dave actually looks down and notices that Jake Evans and Kirby Doc's equipment bags are there. And there's one underneath that we couldn't tell, and we just kind of peeked, and it was Patrick Laine. So we're like, they must some of them are probably going to be in Ottawa when we get there for practice. And sure enough, all three of them were there. So all wearing regular sweaters. I can say that they didn't appear to have any restrictions. It wasn't like a huge contact practice, but still they were playing. They pulled out the old game that we saw a lot when Marty first got here. And it's funny because Marty wasn't there. He had a family commitment of some sort and couldn't attend practice today, but they did the thing where they put the nets on the blue lines and they just basically play 3-on-3 in the neutral zone. That old one.
Yeah. That's an oldie, but a goodie.
That's an oldie, but a goodie. So these guys, all three of those guys participated in that. So that was like at high speed, at full speed. And they didn't seem to have any restriction there. So all three guys appear to be on the verge of coming back. What that means, there's a few things that mean. And we didn't talk about the fact that Owen Beck got sent down with Jacob Fowler today. That, from a cap perspective, kind of helps because aside from the guys who were on LTIR, all the other injured guys are on the roster, including most notably Patrick Laine, whose full salary is accounted for and is not on LTIR.
Even Alex Newhook is on the roster.
Even Alex Newhook is on the cap, right? And so
Yeah, that's it. He's on IR, but I mean, he's not on LTIR.
He's on the cap, but he's Kirby Dach and Jake Evans are the two players who are currently on LTIR. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow in Ottawa when they face the Senators. It didn't seem like it didn't seem to me. They seem close, right? And so let's see what happens. But when they come back, I'm not even going to say if, but when they come back, and unless someone else gets injured in the meantime, it's going to be some as Ken Hughes told you, if we ever find ourselves fully healthy, there's going to be some difficult decisions to make, and they won't be fully healthy. I would be surprised if Laine played soon, but he might. I wouldn't be that surprised, actually, but judging by how he looks on the ice, he doesn't look that far away. I'm just judging on what Ken Hughes said, which is we're pretty much following the plan with Patrick Laine, which would mean he's like 6 weeks away from playing, which doesn't jive with the guy we're seeing on the ice at all. But I think that's a whole separate discussion. When Dach and Evans come back, in particular, there's going to be competition for lineup spots, right? And I think we've basically established that Texier's spot is pretty secure. And so then you start looking on the lineup and like who's vulnerable.
Yeah,
that's where it starts to get difficult.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Samuel Blais, but I think that he's vulnerable. The fact that he needs to be waived before being sent down again is problematic, because I think that he's the sort of player that in the second half of the season, down the stretch, a team will be happy to have him. So I think he'd be vulnerable to be claimed on the waivers if he was put there. So that's the first hurdle. Joseph Veleno, he's also an obvious target, but honestly, Veleno, considering his goal for this year, his mission, what he was hoping to carve as a role for himself in Montreal this season, he's been trending up. Things have been going rather well for him this year. I liked what he's been able to do. Honestly, I was looking at him over training camp, and I didn't see anything from this guy. But he's grown on me as the season has went on, and the physicality is showing up a bit more often. But the speed is there. He's been very trustworthy on the PK, and I feel as though even last night in Buffalo, even though he did not play as much as Danault in the third period, it felt to me as though on one or two occasions he was sent out there in place of Danault in the hopes of scoring a goal. So I don't know what to make of this, but it's just, as much as he could very well be a victim of the numbers game, just like Blais, he's not super deserving to be a victim of that.
Marty has a lot of time for Joe Veleno. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. But the reality is, and this is the elephant in the room right now, is Brendan Gallagher, obviously.
Yeah.
Because he's on the fourth line. I think even that was tricky in the sense that, a player with Brendan Gallagher's track record, his standing in the room, his standing as the longest tenured player, he has a letter on his sweater. Even putting him on the fourth line is delicate. It's touchy. Yeah. But you look at Blais, Veleno, and Gallagher. Blais provides something the Canadiens don't have in the physical element that he provides. I just have this screen up. I still have it up from the moment Texier arrived.
Yeah.
Since Texier arrived, Sammy Blais has played 13 games, 107 minutes at 5-on-5. Gallagher has played 26 games, 280 minutes at 5-on-5, and they each have 5 points at 5-on-5. And so
those have been visible minutes from Blais.
Yes.
When he
Well, because
doesn't play a lot, but when he's there, you see him.
He has a dimension, right? He has he adds a dimension that the Canadiens don't have in abundance. And even because even Anderson, we've talked about this on the show before. Anderson's a physical guy, but he's a physical guy forechecking. He's a physical guy when he gets ahead of steam and he blows a defenseman up. Blais spontaneously physical, like out of nowhere, he will just grab a guy. And last night he tried to put a guy on the bench at one point out of nowhere. Like it was just like it was, and it's a good element to have in your lineup, right? Veleno kills penalties. He takes faceoffs. He's a lefty faceoff guy. Other than Danault, he's their only lefty faceoff guy, and that's important. Plus, he has speed. He's a legit fast skater who's also plays a physical brand of hockey. And then you have Gallagher, and the problem, and what you have with Gallagher is experience, know-how, savvy, place in the room, letter on his sweater. You don't have. He unfortunately does not bring a dimension, a consistent dimension to this lineup on a consistent basis. He had a shift. He had a shift against Buffalo, the one that ended with him and Greenway getting into that tussle, and they wind up getting offsetting minors for roughing. That whole
when he charged
shift,
the net. Yeah.
When he charged the net with the puck, and he was just it was chaos. He created total chaos on the ice. And I was like, wow, that's vintage Gallagher right there. And I was like, haven't seen that in a long time. It's very few and far between those shifts. And so it's hard, like I have a real affinity.
He must start to think that the clock is ticking, right?
Well, today, so he comes out after practice, and we're talking about he gets a question about the guys coming back, and that he himself, he was asked a very generic question to start about Doc and Laine and Evans being at practice. And he's like, yeah, it's really good. And we're getting healthy. So this is a good thing. It's going to help the team. We have more experience, this and that. And on his own said it definitely increases the internal competition. So then I followed up with, speaking of internal competition, how do you feel about, how do you feel like the urgency has to go up for guys who are threatened by these guys? Except I was so tired. I didn't formulate the question that well, and I was having trouble getting it out. And halfway through, Brendan just looked at me and said, I know what you're getting at. And he just answered the question. And he knew what I was talking about. And he knew I was kind of talking about him, even though I didn't say him specifically. He knew. And what he said is I need to bring what I've always brought to this team. And that shift is what he's always brought. And he needs to replicate that. He needs to do that 2 to 3 times per game instead of once every 3 or 4 games. That's the issue. And the other issue is his gas tank is smaller. He's got a smaller gas tank. And to me, the first 25 seconds of a Brendan Gallagher shift, he looks fine. The last 15 seconds, it's not good. It's just not, he's just out of gas quicker. And he can't, and for him to play at the pace he needs to play at, to play for this team, that it makes him run out of gas faster. And so
I've always remembered what Martin St. Louis said last year about talking about Gallagher, but he said it's not as much sometimes a player who slows down. Let's not forget that the league is getting faster every year. So that's an extra challenge, because the guy has to make up for the fact that he's banged up by years of playing a very demanding brand of hockey.
He's never been particularly fast.
No, he has not. But so there's that. There's we're seeing a compressed schedule. The Canadiens just played 6 games in 9 nights. I mean, it's demanding for any player. For a guy like Gallagher, it will be even more. And on top of that, well, there's the fact that his own, his gas tank, as you say, is smaller. So there's combining factors that make it very difficult for those shifts to be coming out often enough. We saw it against the Sabres once, but unfortunately, it's going to take more than that, and if he'll end up fighting for a spot when Doc comes back, and when Evans comes back, he'll be fighting for a spot with Veleno, with Boulet, maybe with Zachary Bolduc.
Yep,
There's a few
maybe.
guys there, and we have not mentioned Patrick Laine, who's going to be, his own
He's a
his own
separate
riddle.
category. He's a
Yeah.
separate category completely. But Budzik is, last night after the game, Phil Danault comes out. I think a couple of the reporters want to talk to someone on the penalty kill because, after a very good run, I think they were 23 for 24 entering that game or something like that. They give up
Yes.
2 goals pretty quickly to Buffalo.
Mm.
And so we talked about it for a little bit. And at the end, I think it was Guillaume Lefrançois who asked, how did you think your line played tonight? And he's like, no, aucun chimie, pas de chimie, no chemistry. Who is on his left wing? Zachary Bolduc. Has Zachary Bolduc formed chemistry with any player on this team this season? No. The answer to that is no.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's been difficult. The people who say he should be in Laval, I think, are wrong. Like, this is, in a sense, Zachary Bolduc is really is emblematic of what should remain the priority of the Canadiens. Yes, they're competitive. Yes, they want to play in the playoffs. He's not preventing them from playing in the playoffs. But the guys who are going to be on this team when they're ready to contend, which Zachary Bolduc will, unless this is what he is, which I can't believe it is, because this is not the version of Zachary Bolduc we saw in St. Louis. The one saving grace for the Canadiens in his case, sorry for the digression, is last year, when we had Jeff Gorton on in the summer, he said, when Jim Montgomery came, it really turned around Zach Bolduc's game. Yes, but really the big difference was the return from Four Nations. The version of Zach Bolduc when they came back from Four Nations last year was night and day from the version prior. And in that span, he went down to the AHL for a couple of games. And didn't really succeed there and wasn't good. But what he did, he said, I talked to him about it a long time ago. And he was like, it just made me hungry. Like it just reinforced what I needed to do to stay in the NHL. Like it served its purpose for that. But there's another break coming up, very similarly timed to the Four Nations. So maybe then have him play a couple of games in Laval, try and recreate the same conditions that created his setup in St. Louis. But for now, not only should he be with the Canadiens, I firmly believe he should be in the lineup, despite how poorly he's playing. He needs to figure it out, and they need to have him figure it out. But I think the Canadiens also need to figure him out a little bit.
Well, with the amount of tools that he's got and the young age, I think that they've got a lot of runway to develop this player. It's just that the level of development that it requires, it's a little bit out of sync. It would have been great had it been a project 2 years ago, So now it's as if it's not exactly what we need right now, but the Canadiens are entering their window. They're barely opening that window, so they can allow to have guys that they're developing on the fly. But this is a case with Zachary Bolduc where he's not a finished product, but I see the tools there. It's just that I think that those are long-term serious words from Danault, who, by the way, did not play an amazing game himself against Buffalo.
Well, he wasn't blaming anyone else. I'm putting the blame on Bolduc. That wasn't him. He was just saying "pas de chimie." Like he was just like the line was bad. It's all he was saying.
Yeah.
I'm adding the other part. Like he didn't say Bolduc sucked, obviously, or that I have no chemistry with Bolduc. He just, to describe the play of his line as a whole. And to be fair, it's not as if Anderson is the most adaptable, malleable player on his right either. Anderson needs a very specific kind of line to play on, similar to the kind of line maybe Evans will go between those two guys, and maybe that line would work. Who knows? But Phil didn't seem to think that line was working, and frankly, he was right. You just have to watch the game; they were really bad. But yeah, in terms of what to do, like if Doc, the most intriguing part to me is like if Doc is used with Suzuki and Caulfield, And just the last thing on Budzik in terms of his long-term potential, like I still think in theory, he makes a lot of sense as the future winger with Suzuki and Caulfield, like 2 years from now, when he's like fully developed and fully adapted and everything. And maybe his ability to read the game improves in that time. Who knows? It's possible. He's still very young.
Yeah.
He kind of has all the tools. When you mention you see the tools, like I see the tools to play there. And I think Marty did too. That's why he tried him there. But if Doc goes there when he comes back, and then you have Texier, who's like a super interesting person to have on your bottom six. Like I would try Texier with Dano.
Texier, Dano, Anderson would make a great third line.
Sure. So then you have Budzik, Veleno. Blais might not be here at that point, but Blais, Gallagher to play with Evans.
Right.
And who am I forgetting? No, that's it.
Just Laine. That's
Well, Laine, yeah. Laine is we're going to talk about Laine another day. No, but for now, so honestly, so you have Evans. Let's for now, let's say we have Dano, Anderson, Texier. So you have Evans in the middle, and of those guys, you know, Gallagher's spot on power play 2 is probably going to be taken by Doc anyway. And so because he's a righty, Gallagher's a righty, and I think a big reason why Gallagher's on that unit is because he's a right shot and he can play the goal line. I think Doc can do that. So, and Doc was on power play 2 today to replace Texier, who didn't skate. So that was a bit of a tell that he's getting closer. At practice, I should say. It's hard to look at Veleno, Blais, Gallagher for 2 spots and not, again, go to the same equation where Veleno is a penalty killer, face-off guy, left shot. Like Veleno checks all these boxes. Blais checks all these boxes. The boxes that Gallagher checks are far more intangible than actual tangible things that you can see happen on the ice. It's going to be, it's a very interesting, very delicate, touchy decision to make for a head coach who played well past Gallagher's age, but was obviously a Hall of Fame player. Like I don't want to compare the two, but probably understands how Gallagher feels right now, you know, and understands his importance more than we would in terms of room dynamics and team dynamics and everything else. So on merit, Gallagher's the one who was set for me, you know?
Yeah. But, you know, okay, so at the beginning of the show, we talked about Fowler being sent down with the Olympic break coming. When you think about it, it's obvious that it would be him. Now you have an issue where you've got Veleno, Bolduc, Evans, Gallagher, Blais, all vying for certain spots. There's too many guys. But Bolduc is waiver exempt. If I was to play along with your idea and they were to do what the Blues did during Four Nations and send him down just for, you know, during the Olympic break, why not do it now and protect yourself from the risk of losing Blais? Make Blais your 13 forward and have a fourth line of Veleno, Evans, and Gallagher, and have the option of replacing Gallagher with Blais on any given night.
Yeah, I suppose.
But that's a temporary situation, right? Because that's just
that's a developmental. That's where the developmental versus asset management / roster management thing comes in. You know, it's are the Canadiens willing to make a roster management move with a young player that they feel is a big part of their future? And because going to the AHL, having talked to him about his experience in the AHL last year, he did not like it. He did not like it one bit.
Mm-hmm.
He did it. But he first of all, he said he played terrible. He was not nowhere near the best version of himself. He was actually quite bad. Could not really follow what was going on just because the style is so much more chaotic in the AHL than it is in the NHL. But you watch him play this year, and it seems like a bit more chaos might do him some good. But I mean, I honestly from a roster asset management situation standpoint, I don't mind it. I just sending guys to the AHL, and no one knows this better than Kent, is always it's tougher to do with a first round pick, a guy who's loaded with talent, a guy who's supposed to be entering his prime in the NHL, a guy who told me at the beginning of the season, I'm an NHL player now, which was a bit premature, granted, but that's what's going on in his head. You know, I don't have anything to learn in the AHL, etc. So I think that solves the problem in a big way.
I understand the kid to think that way, but if Brendan Gallagher understands the situation and see that there's a clog coming, the second year NHLer should have the same read on the situation. Say, you know what, if I don't start performing soon and show that I can have some chemistry with my line mates,
he 100% he should.
The young man out.
He should, 100%. I do not disagree. I don't disagree. And on merit, sending him to Laval would listen. He hasn't. I mean, he has 1 assist in 2026.
Yeah,
you know, it's like he's just gone through these long stretches where nothing's going on, and he's not really generating offense. Forget the production. Like, there's no offensive things happening when he's on the ice. So I think I just don't, it's as delicate as the Gallagher situation, just on the other end of the spectrum, right? It's like, all of these things are examples of why it helps to have a player agent as your general manager. These are things that having a player agent running these things is very helpful, because he has lived these situations with his clients many times and knows what it's like, and he is going to take that into account. So we'll see what that player agent does, because it's not an easy, we haven't solved anything in this whole conversation. We're just talking.
No. And just laying we've
found no solutions other than sending Bodzik to Laval, which I know a lot of people want, and I still vehemently kind of disagree with. I think it's a bad message to send to a player that you feel is going to be important to your group. And if you have to lose Samuel Blais, is that the end of the world? No. Has he been good? Yes. There's a lot of reasons to keep Samuel Blais, but if that sends Zachary Fucale into this dark place where he might not emerge, I don't know. I don't know if I would do it.
Okay, but on the other side of the Olympic break, whether we choose to close our eyes and block our ears and go la 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 la, it remains that at some point, Patrick Laine, if he's not traded, will be healthy enough to play. He'll be one more guy. At the end of the Olympic break, Alex Newhook will be ready to play. So that numbers game is not about to go away. So you're going to be faced with that choice. So I continue to believe, because the number of bodies, that they'll look for ways to go from quantity to quality and try to solve that problem. And maybe that Bodzik could come out of that with a new opportunity after the Olympic break. But I just think that for the time being, it seems to me like it's a situation. It's a possibility, because, I mean, Joe Veleno, if he was to play with Evans, or to play, would play with Evans and be like this left-handed guy on the face-off circle, he would also provide another guy on the PK, which would further protect Suzuki from PK minutes. I know that he's good on the PK, but if you want to make
he's been phenomenal on the PK. He's been so good since Anderson went out.
Yeah,
And
I know.
he became a regular contributor on the penalty kill. This is Anderson and Evans, the combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
He is such a good penalty killer. Like, it's really a shame that I agree with not putting him there. I agree.
It's just a matter of limiting his minutes, you know?
I understand, but he's a very, very good penalty killer. That's all I'm saying. It'd be nice if
he's
he
a
could
very
kill
good
penalties.
player.
Yes. Yes. But it'd be good if he could play some he's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, like, I asked Robida today, actually, like, does Evans returning mean you've basically lost Suzuki forever on the penalty kill? He's like, yeah. He didn't really answer, but
okay. Well, it'll be as to quote Stéphane Robida, we'll see. I mean, it's
exactly.
At this point, it's I mean, that roster crunch is about to be to become real. So
I honestly wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one of them play in Ottawa tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anderson and Texier were having some therapy days, but there's no, I don't know if they're around.
I couldn't tell you. Honestly, like, this was probably one of the bigger newsy days around the Canadiens. All these guys come to Ottawa, meet the team there. They're all in regular jerseys. They send Fowler and Beck down, twice, actually. The Canadiens had pretty big news while I was in the car driving. On the way to Buffalo was the Texier contract, and on the way here was the Fowler and Beck sending to Laval. But on this day, there was no one to talk to about any of these things. It was like, obviously, no management talked about sending Fowler down. We couldn't even talk to Jakub Dobeš, who's kind of the big winner in the Fowler being sent down, since it was some question of him going to Laval.
Yeah.
They didn't make him available. We got Montembeault. And then there was no head coach. And obviously Marty's allowed to have a life and he has a family commitment. That's fine. I'm not criticizing him for it. But it just turns out that on this day full of news, we didn't speak to anyone with any authority over any of the news that actually happened. So, like, Stéphane Robida is like, I can't give you timelines. I don't know. Like, I think he said, that's not my department, like 3 times. We're like, yeah, but you're what we got. You're what we got, man. Like, this is like, what do you want? Like, he's fielding questions on Jacob Fowler and fielding questions on, like, the lineup and the roster and all this stuff. And it's like, there was just no
above his pay grade in this sense.
Well, yeah, and I don't blame him either. Like, what's he supposed to say? Like, he's the defense coach.
Sure,
he runs the PK, and so he talked about those 2 things because that's what he does, But it's no clarity, so we'll see. Canadiens aren't expected to skate Saturday because they had a brief but pretty full, energetic practice today. But I imagine we'll get to talk to Martin at their team hotel tomorrow morning, and then maybe we'll have some clarity on what's going on there.
Right. So 7 p.m. game on Saturday night against the Senators in Ottawa, and we will be back on Monday the 19th for our next episode for our subscribers. So in the meantime, everybody enjoy your weekend, enjoy your hockey, and Arpin, I'll talk to you again on Monday.
Have a good weekend, everyone.